Hi, I'm Joe Sweeney. I founded the Acervo Project in response to the growing epidemic of human trafficking and child exploitation. Classifying this as an epidemic is an understatement. Our investigation teams and cyber analysts are tracking child predators every day. We're making a difference, but we need your help. The average age of a trafficked child is just 14 years old. Will you join the Acervo Project team? Donate $14 a month to protect the next at-risk 14-year-old. Pledge your $14 a month at theacervoproject.org. That's ASSERVO.org.
Hi, I'm Brad Dacus, president and founder of the Pacific Justice Institute. Welcome to Faith and Law. Now let's take a look at this latest trending viral video.
Megan Rapinoe, who plays U.S. women's soccer, says that it's disgusting to ban transgender athletes from competing against biological women. What? In her interview, she says, "Show me the evidence that trans women are taking everyone's scholarships, are dominating in every spot, are winning every title. Challenge accepted, Megan." Just a point to start, the U.S. women's national team, which Megan is on, was beat by a squad of under 15-year-old boys in 2017. But biological men don't have an advantage, right, Megan? Then we have Leah Thomas, a biological male who's dominating, competing against biological females in swimming. Sasha Jane Lowerson, an Australian surfer who's beating out all the women competing. Lillian Gallagher, who last year beat out 2 biological females in skateboarding. Cece Telfer, who won the NCAA championship for 400-meter hurdles. Tiffany Abreu, a trans volleyball player whose team won the 2022 Brazilian Cup.
Well, Megan, it's easy for you to say that, but the problem is you're retiring. How convenient. I bet there's a lot of women out there who are in athletic competition who don't agree with you on that. Yeah, especially those that lost the competition when it came to swimming or other sports and athletic competitions where they were going to win, possibly win a scholarship, and they didn't get the scholarship. They didn't win. Why? Because there was a biological male competing against them that had 10 times the testosterone to help develop their muscle skeletal structure growing up that the female didn't have. So this is very twisted. It's ignoring the biological differences. It's ignoring truth and reality at the expense of a lot of women out there who are being shoved aside. All that they've done to work up and to develop themselves to the max, discarded in an instant because of radical woke policies. Megan, you're a puppet of the woke movement. For every puppet, there are also puppeteers. And to help us talk about such a puppeteer, Nike, I'd like to now bring onto the show one of our attorneys, Ray Hackey, who's taking on a case defending someone of faith who is suffering because of this company's radical, intolerant, and woke ideologies. Welcome to the show, Ray Hackey.
Happy to be here, Brad.
Okay, so Ray, I understand that we're defending an employee who was fired from Nike, not because they were doing a bad job, but because they had religious convictions and requested a religious exemption when it came to the vax mandate. What happened?
Well, Antoinette Murray was hired by Nike in 2021. The COVID-19 pandemic had been going on for about a year at that point, and at some point, Nike instituted a requirement that it wanted all of its employees to be vaccinated. Well, Antoinette Murray was a administrative assistant. She worked remotely. She didn't even go into Nike's offices in Beaverton. There was no point in getting the vaccine because she wasn't a danger to anybody. But even so, she did have religious convictions. She felt that she believes what it says in 1 Corinthians 6:19 and 20, that our body's a temple of the Holy Spirit. She's not to defile it in any way. And she felt the vaccine was unclean, and, she didn't want to defile her body with it. And so she sought a religious exemption from the vaccine requirement, and Nike just flat out fired her for it. It didn't really consider it, didn't give her the chance to appeal. It just said it was their way or the highway, and they showed her to the highway.
Now, Ray, Nike is not a small company. It's a large, notable company. What is their stance when it comes to vaccines and woke ideologies?
Well, when it comes to woke ideologies, the best thing I can tell you is that one of their representatives is Dylan Mulvaney. I mean, we're talking a biological male dressing up in women's exercise outfits and exercising in their commercials. But Dylan Mulvaney is the one who caused Bud Light to tank, and yet Nike is still sticking with him. Colin Kaepernick is another of Nike's endorsers. So Nike is very much on the woke train. They are Oregon's easily most visible company. It's Phil Knight is. They just had a movie come out about Nike this year. It's called Air, and it's about Nike's deal with Michael Jordan. They're and Phil Knight, who's the founder and CEO of Nike, he's a huge benefactor of the University of Oregon's athletic program. So they're very woke. They're very and basically when it comes to the vaccine, when it comes to woke issues, they don't care. I think their mindset is Phil Knight is a billionaire. He can do what he wants, and Phil Knight's a billionaire. He can do what basically they can do what they want, and if they sue, it's not really going to hurt Nike. Nike's got lawyers at their disposal. So I have a feeling that Nike just kind of feels like, okay, we're mandating the vaccine. We don't care what your reasons are. You're going to get it, or we're going to show you the door. It doesn't matter whether you're working in our offices or whether you're working remotely. So that seems to be kind of their mindset.
Well, I know we want to make an example out of companies like Nike, the big guys, to make it very clear that they can't get away with this kind of tyranny. Why do you think it's important that PJI take on these big cases and big companies that are engaging in radical woke ideology and policies?
Well, it's I should let you know up front that Nike's not the only one we're taking on. We're taking on T-Mobile. This week, I plan on filing a lawsuit against Columbia Sportswear, which is also headquartered in Portland. I mean, Nike is kind of the Portland metro area is kind of the athletic shoe and apparel capital of the world. So we are taking on some of these big companies, and it is hugely important because, when Congress enacted Title VII in 1964, they flat out said that employers may not discriminate on the basis of religion. And, more recently, the Supreme Court declared that the standard for undue hardship, which is about the only reason why they can discriminate, and that is they have to show substantial burdens or costs. And in this case, there would have been no substantial burdens or costs. All they had to do is say, was stamp her form, say, here's your religious exception, continue working remotely, have a nice day. Well, basically, a lot of companies out there seem to think that the COVID-19 pandemic gave them license to just purge people of faith from their workplace. And that's not the case. Title VII wasn't suspended just because there was a pandemic on. They still had the duty to accommodate their employees' sincerely held religious beliefs where they could. Nike chose not to do that, and it is our hope that Nike will have to pay for that. And I also want to. While we're talking right now, I want to give a big shout out to Lorna Henry, who's at PJI's Maryland office. Because of my heavy workload here in Oregon, she has stepped up to try and ease some of my burden, and she has helped tremendously. So I want to give, I can't take all the credit. She has done a lot of work on this, and she has done a fantastic job.
Well, Ray, I don't care how big a company is. It's not too big ever to ignore the constitutional or the civil rights that all Americans have under federal law, state law, or for that matter, the U.S. Constitution. So this is a very important case, and I'm glad you're moving on it. How does this case look moving forward?
I think our case looks pretty strong. I think the fact that she worked remotely is probably the best thing in our arsenal, because it's not like she came into the building. She posed no threat to anybody. Why they couldn't just say, here's your religious exemption, have a nice day, and allow her to keep working. And it doesn't help matters that, that Nike has had openings for substantially similar jobs since then, and she's applied for them and they've rejected her. So it seems to me that her religious beliefs are the reason why they didn't want her there. That basically that they've used her refusal to be vaccinated as an excuse to get rid of her. And you're right, Brad. It doesn't matter how much money they have. It doesn't give them the right to just flout the law and basically say, we can discriminate against whoever. The law is there for a reason. Companies should not discriminate against the people of faith who work for them. People have legitimate reasons for not wanting to get this vaccine on religious grounds. So, if a company like Nike can get away with it, then pretty much any company in this country can, and Title VII becomes meaningless. So, you're right, and I'm not afraid to take on those big companies because they need to be brought down. They need to be taught a thing or two, taught a lesson or two.
Well, Ray, keep up the good work. I appreciate all that you're doing. There's another big bully that we're taking on right now. In addition to Nike, it's a massive, huge entertainment company, a company that also owns the stadium where the LA Lakers play. And help talk about this case, I'd like to bring on right now our attorney from our Southern California office, PJI attorney Michael Peffer. Welcome to the show, Michael. Now, Michael, tell me about this case. And understand it involves another employee of faith who has strong religious convictions against taking a COVID vaccination. And that person requested a religious exemption. What happened?
Right. Thanks, Brad. And it's great to be on with you. So, look, this is another one of those situations where we have a guy who's able to do his job. This is a cameraman, and he had been working with them for a long time. And they've had good results with him. He was regularly called back. And as you know, we remember it seemed like those in the entertainment industry were very, very left-leaning, and therefore forcing their employees to get the vaccine, even though it just wasn't necessary, as we now know. But it wasn't necessary here because it wasn't as if he was in large crowds of people. He was in a small room doing the camera work. And he asked for an exemption based on sincerely held religious beliefs. And they basically, delayed and delayed and delayed. And ultimately, they denied him and stopped calling him for work.
So once again, we see another big company harassing and being intolerant to people of faith. Michael, how prevalent do you think this is? And how does a company think they can get away with this? I mean, even if they're a large company, they surely have to realize they're still bound by the law against discrimination and intolerance towards people of faith.
Yeah, Brad, this is one of the more interesting things that we've found out as we all have been working on these cases. This is a large company. AEG is probably one of the largest companies of its kind in the country, and therefore probably in the world, but it's a huge company that manages the former Staples Center and now cryptocurrency.com arena. And I think they feel like they're untouchable, particularly the media companies. And I think the aspect of this case that AEG is involved is a media company. And for any event that was at the arena, this gentleman was one of the men on the camera. And so, I think they believed that somehow Title VII and the law that is protecting the rights of religious believers just wasn't going to hurt them. And they basically just went wholesale, let's terminate them. Let's terminate them right away. And not even give any credence whatsoever to their religious beliefs.
Michael, what do you think the implications are if we at PJI do not take on cases like this?
You know, Brad, I must tell you that there was a point when I was thinking, wow, I mean, should we be involved in these cases in the very early days of this? But, you know, the implications are this, and it's very clear. The implications are that employees who have sincerely held religious beliefs will be left on their own. And that is something that is dreadful to me. I have spoken, and as have you, to many, many employees who simply wanted to follow the dictates of their conscience before God and therefore not take this vaccine, which turned out to be, as a side issue, not very efficacious, and in fact, probably dangerous. And so I think that the implications are nobody else was going to be handling these. When you stood up and said, you know what, PGI is going to take these cases on, there were very few others, if any, across the country that were doing so. So, boy, what a privilege it's been to be able to serve folks who have sincerely held religious beliefs and to say, no, we're going to go to fight for you. And as well, now we have some great things happening. The Supreme Court ruled that some of the justification that employers were using was not accurate and was unconstitutional under the undue burden test.
Okay, Michael, looking ahead, how do you see this case progressing?
Well, right now we are at the very initial stages of the requirements in federal court. We have an upcoming conference that will determine when the case goes to trial. We are involved in a discovery, and that is asking questions under oath so that our client's message can be heard and we can hear their justification as well, such as it is. But I look at this case probably to you either go to trial or have a motion heard. It's the spring of next year, the summer of next year, as far as if it ends up going to trial. We want to try to resolve some of these cases, and it'll be interesting to see which of these companies that we've sued. And as you well know, we have many cases just like this, not just in this office, in which we have nearly 25 of them, but our other offices. And so it remains to be seen whether or not AEG is going to be willing to step up to the table and try to resolve this case so that our client can go back to living his life normally. He's already back to work, thank God. But I think he wants to go on with his life, but we're going to fight until we finish.
Well, Michael, thank you very much for the work that you're doing. We greatly appreciate that. Folks, it's so important that we do not allow anyone, including the big bullies, these big companies or big government agencies for that matter, to get away with stomping on our civil liberties. Whether it's under the Constitution or under the civil rights statutes, we have to stand up against that.
Well, they're in the trenches and they're fighting, and PGI is on the front lines for the battle for freedom and liberty. They've been doing so much to equip pastors across the country and to really fight for the values that have made this country so great. Honored to be supportive of PGI.
We're living in a time when Christians are constantly under assault for their beliefs in the marketplace. And if there's not someone to advocate for them and help them with the legal necessities of defending themselves, they're going to get fired. They have no recourse. Most people don't have the resources to go hire a lawyer. It would deplete everything they own. And most lawyers, quite frankly, across the country don't deal in religious liberty issues.
Well, we're living in some very difficult days in America where basic freedoms and especially religious liberty is under attack. And that's one of the reasons why Pacific Justice Institute is so vitally important to the future of this nation. What a great group of lawyers, first-class, top-rate lawyers who are willing to stand up for freedom and stand up for our American citizens under attack.
Yeah, I mean, they can support, they can follow, they can pray. We need more organizations like PJI, and I could tell you that being in the front lines, there's not enough people that are actually in the trenches doing the difficult but tough work, and that's exactly why this organization is so critical.
One of the most incredible things about Pacific Justice Institute is that they do pro bono work. And what does that mean? Well, it means the rest of us have a responsibility. We've got to stand up and provide financial incentives and financial opportunities for these attorneys to get out there and do the fighting. And that's one of the reasons why we have Pacific Justice Institute attorneys on my national radio show, because we want to let people know, hey, there's a need here. These folks are doing very important work, and they're doing very important, successful work as well. And that's why they need our support.
When a Christian is targeted for his or her beliefs, it affects every believer in America. This idea that, well, it didn't happen to me, well, you're next. And when Pacific Justice Institute takes on a case, it's not just that one individual that they really are representing, because a legal precedent may be established from that will protect 1 million believers who could be in the same position for the exact same issue.
I'd like to take a look at some scripture, because at the end of the day, God's word needs to be our reference point, and we never forget that. So let's take a look at Proverbs 14:26. It says, "In the fear of the Lord, there is strong confidence, and his children will have refuge." Notice it doesn't say, in the fear of how great you are and how strong you are and competent you are. No, it says, in the fear of the Lord, there is strong confidence. In other words, when we're putting our trust in the Lord, at the end of the day, we can be confident that no matter what the odds, no matter how big the bully is, we can see justice. We can prevail. It also says in Matthew 17:20, Jesus says, "For truly I say to you, if you have faith like a grain of mustard seed," which is really tiny, folks, "you will say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it will move. And nothing will be impossible for you." Why? Because nothing is impossible with God. There's been cases we've taken on that I thought for sure we're going to lose. And that's pretty bad when the head general of an army says, yeah, we're going to lose. That's not a good sign. But I'll be honest with you, there's been times I thought that. I thought, this is just almost impossible. But with God, all things are possible. We've seen victories. A case where we had 3 judges already rule against the rights of parents to homeschool. And we took that on, and we asked them to rehear the case. They reheard the case. They heard oral argument from our chief counsel, and guess what? They reversed themselves. 3 judges with black robes said, we were wrong. That is a miracle. I've never seen that in my life. Other cases where we sought an emergency writ with the United States Supreme Court. An emergency writ is almost impossible to be brought before the Supreme Court. It's much more difficult than a regular appeal to the Supreme Court. But this was on behalf of all the churches and synagogues that were shut down. And guess what? The Supreme Court took it up, and in just 3 days, and by the way, great things happen in 3 days. Easter, for those of you who may have forgotten, okay? In just 3 days, the Supreme Court ruled 6-3, ordering California Governor Gavin Newsom open those churches now. And he did. And it sent shockwaves across the nation. The case seemed impossible, but we know our God can do that which the world says is impossible. And with God, all things are possible, including getting a miracle win before the United States Supreme Court. So be encouraged. Don't be afraid of the bully. Don't be afraid of the giant company or government entity out there. Know we've got a powerful God. And also know by God's grace, he's also raised up Pacific Justice Institute to serve you in times of need. So we have challenges, folks, but always, always keep the faith.
Taken TV is making TV watchable again. Join us on the Active Kingdom Entertainment Network. Download Taken TV from your App Store now.